Welcome YouTube, and welcome back to all my Buster buddies. I am your big kahuna here, Brad, and this is Brad's Boredom Busters, your textile art channel. This is the channel where we have fun with fabric. Alright, and on this episode we are going to be continuing with our art quilt techniques. Yes, we are going to be doing a technique that I call picture puzzle piecing. It's the method that I used on this large art quilt. Yeah, the last episode we did the landscaping. This time we are going to be doing the method I used on the rabbi's face and robe. And so this is the picture puzzle piecing episode. And so the reason I like this method, and it's not my original method, I learned this one from another YouTube quilt artist. It makes it really quick and easy to piece things together, and it gives you an interesting look. And you can do a lot with it. So I'll be showing you how to piece a picture together, and then later on we will be doing some thread painting as well. And so Iris, if you really liked that last episode, I hope you enjoyed this one as well. I enjoyed your comment. Thank you very much. Alright, so I've gotten a head start on this project because I know these sewing videos get to be a little long. And so let's head over to the work table and I'll show you what I've got accomplished so you can catch up and follow along. So this is the reference photo that I chose to demonstrate this picture puzzle piecing method because it has a lot of elements to it. I mean, the colors, there's whites and darks and lights, and then there's veining, and anyway, I thought this would be a good image to demonstrate this piecing technique. And so what you want to do is just initially draw out your image in whatever size you want to do. I'll show you the one I did. Okay, so this was my initial drawing. I did the whole outline, and after I drew this up, then using my reference photo, I picked out highlights and the shadow areas and the veins. I created kind of a map of where everything should go. I marked dark areas, light areas, and then also areas that will get thread painted, and just different techniques that I'm going to use. So I needed to see where all that goes. And so this is what you need to do to create this kind of an image. And then once you get this done, because this drawing is in the position that I want the finished quilt to look, but to do this method, you are going to be actually transferring this image to some cutaway stabilizer on the back, so it'll be a mirror image of it. So the next thing you need to do once you get all this drawn out is with either a light box, or you can go up against a window that has good light coming through it, is place this down on your light box so the image shows through, and then draw it all out again so you have a mirror image of itself. And then also create all your reference marks again. And then once you get to this point, then you take your stabilizer, and this is cutaway stabilizer, and I'll put a link to some in my description below. You want to take that and then take some regular carbon paper that you can get from any office supply store. Lay that on your stabilizer and then put your image over it with a pencil. That just trace over all your marks again and transfer your image to your stabilizer. And so that's kind of up to the point that I've gotten to so far. And so your next thing that you'll be doing is selecting all your fabrics for this project. So this is my dark and my light fabric. This actually will be the background around my leaf. And then you'll also need to select threads for this as well. So this is all a light area. So I will take a piece of this fabric, cut it out a little oversized of this, then turn it over, and then I'll pin it to the stabilizer on which will become the front side of the project. And after it's pinned, and you want, like I say, you want to pin it larger than the area you're going to sew, but you can pin it in the middle and around the edges, and I'll do that next and show you. But then once we have that pinned, then you'll take it to your sewing machine, and you'll set your sewing machine for free motion, and then you'll stitch along your line, or maybe just slightly inside it. Once you get that piece of fabric stitched down, then you turn this over, and then with very fine scissor, just cut very close to your stitching, and that's one piece. And then you'll just go on to the next light piece and the next light piece, and then once you're done with all your light pieces, then you can do the darks. And so for me, I only have dark and light fabric going down for this image. And then after I get all my fabric stitched down, then that's when we'll go back and start doing some thread painting, and that'll give it some extra texture and give you some more color gradations. So at this point, I am going to show you how to put your first piece down, and then everything else will be the same after that. And so after I get the first one done, I'll do the rest off camera, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next step. Okay, let me get set up and then we'll get right back to it. Okay, I'll show you how I get this set up for this first piece, how we cut it out. Also, depending on what your image is, I mean, I'm doing this leaf, and if you know, when you look at the reference photo, the leaf has texture and all. So with the fabric, you want to, depending on what fabric you're using, but if your image has some sort of grain or direction to it, try to cut your fabric so it's kind of has that same movement and directional feel to it, just so when you're finished with your image, it looks more like your reference. That gets flipped over, and then like I say, you want to lay your fabric down over your image and pin it in place. And certainly you're using your handy dandy owl pin cushion that you can make from my video. The thing you definitely want to use when you're pinning this kind of a project are these flat-headed pins, because this will be facing down onto your sewing machine bed, so you don't want a pin that has like a pearl head, you know, any kind of round head. You want a pin that is flat, so when you're moving it around, it's not going to interfere with the stitching of your project. And I will leave a link in the description below for materials that I'm using on this project. So I will find you a link for this type of pin on Amazon if you don't have a fabric store handy that carries these, but you can get these at most any fabric store. Sometimes they're in the quilting section of the store. Okay, there we go. That's good. So see, I have the pins all the way around so they're not interfering where I'm going to be stitching. I have one inside that is also not going to get in the way. I will get the sewing machine set up now, and like I say, you'll set up your sewing machine for free motion stitching. So we are just going to be following the outlines. It's real simple. It goes really quick. Once you kind of get into a rhythm on doing this and piecing it together, it goes nice and quick. All right, I'll see you at the sewing machine. Okay, Busters, so I'm just going to get my sewing machine set up. So, like I say, you want to set it up for free motion, which means you want your feed dogs down. I am putting on just a simple free motion foot. It's very small. That way I can see my lines that I'm stitching to easily. I am putting on a universal needle. This one is a 9014. Like I said, I'll be using variegated thread to stitch out all this fabric with. You can use whatever thread that you want to, because most of it will get covered up again, or all of it will get covered up again with satin stitching. So I just use this in case something doesn't get covered up, it'll still hide a little bit. So let me get everything put together, and then we'll proceed. Okay, Busters, so I'm all set up. I've got my slip mat down, and then I've got my gripper gloves, my quilting gripper gloves on, and I will have links to all these materials and supplies in the description. So let's get started. Okay, so I just did the outline all around it, but I've got a couple of dark areas in the middle, so I am going to stitch around those so I can cut the fabric out from these areas when I turn it over. I also accidentally went a little too far over here, but I think I can fix that and just use a hem ripper to just clean off some of that stitching, so I can cut that area off cleanly. Okay, on with the show. Okay, so that's all of that. Cut off our extra threads. So let's clean up our threads on this side. Okay, so your next step is just pull all your pins, and then with a scissor, just cut around the outside of all your stitching, and then these couple areas that are going to get a different color, then I will probably take a hem ripper and cut a little slash in there so I can get my scissor in around and cut these two little areas out. So I will do that next, show you what that looks like when I'm finished. This is where I screwed up, so I just have to tear out a few stitches here. Okay, and that, I just have to rip this open. All right, so there's our first element. That's how basically you do all the other pieces in whatever number of colors you need to do it in. So like I say, for me, I've basically just got this color, which is my light, and then I've got a darker green, and then like I say, other colors will be added when we get into the stitching at the end. That's when we're doing our quilting. So now that you've seen how this is done, I am going to finish up the rest of this leaf, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. It looks a little rough before you start the satin stitching, but I'll show you the completed stitched out leaf before I start that process. So you just keep going over every piece of your picture in all the different elements and add the fabric as you need to. All right, I'll be doing that, and then I'll see you when I'm finished. Okay, Busters, so I've got all my light fabric stitched on. So this is what it looks like so far. So my next step is sewing on all my darks. Okay, Busters, so I've got all the elements pieced together and included the background. And so at this point, if you're going to do any kind of border around your quilt, then this is a time to do it. I am going to add a border around this. I am going to treat it like a full-size wall quilt, so I'm going to border it. I will put little hangers on it later, and this will get the regular quilt sandwich, so it'll get its batting behind and a backing fabric as well. So at this point, I am ready to stitch on the borders around here, and so let me get that cut. Okay, Busters, so this is the fabric I'm going to use for the border. I'm going to cut 2-inch strips and then stitch that on around it using a 1/4-inch seam allowance. So I'm going, because of the width of this fabric, I only need 3 strips, and so I am going to cut that now. So I am going to fold this into 3 layers so I can make just 2 cuts and get my 3 strips. And because of the length of it, I will fold that in half again. And because your folds are your straight lines, I am going to use this back folded edge as my good true edge, and then line that up to one of the lines on my cutting mat. Alright, so that's good there. So the other thing you'll need then is a quilting ruler. This one is a 24-inch, which will reach across this. And then a rolling cutter. So we will do the inside cut first. I will cut that at 3.5 inches. That way I get rid of the fold. Okay. Take care of that. Okay, get rid of that. So now let's go take this and flip it around. It's still lining up there. So you have a good cut, so you have a good true line. And keep this cut true. Now line up to your 2-inch mark, and we can cut through that. Go. Okay, that's excess. So there we are. We have 1, 2, and 3 2-inch strips. I think I need to iron them out a little bit to flatten them out, but they are your 2-inch strips. And one of them actually can be cut in half. So I can cut that piece in half because the quilt that I'm working on is 11 by 17. And so that'll fit my 11 side, and this 2 will fit on the 17 side. Then they will have to get trimmed down after they're stitched on. Okay, so let me get these pieces ironed out, and then I will meet you at the sewing machine, and we will show you how to put on this border. Okay, Busters, so got my strips here. I need to cut those to size. So my quilt here is 11.5 on the short side, and I like to sew up the short sides first. So let's cut these to length at 11.5. Okay. Okay. So now we can take our quilt and add these on. So take your border and put it on face down, or as sometimes they call it, right side down. And line that up. So I've got my 1/4 inch foot on, and then some black thread in here now. And so I am going to Just stitch along here at 1/4 inch, and then we will iron that back. Well, we'll do the other side first. After we get both of them on, then we will iron it back. And let's back stitch it to lock it in. So let me get these over to the ironing board and we'll iron them down. Press those down, then we'll measure across and get our other pieces cut to size. Actually, for the top and bottom piece, I'll cut those a little long, and then that way after I stitch it on, I can actually trim it all up and square it up later. Let me get these 2 borders pressed down, and then we'll add the other 2. All right, see you in a minute. All right, well, that was a minute for me, but just a second for you. All right, so I'm going to take my neck strips and just, like I say, rough cut those. All right, so we can take these 2 strips and get these stitched on. Okay, and now same, we'll take and iron these down, and then we'll be ready for our next steps. Let me get these ironed into place, and then we'll discuss what's coming up next. Okay, Busters, so here I've got the borders on, and so now it's time to kind of make our quilt sandwich. And so I've got it kind of laid out together here. I've got the top panel here, and then under it I've got some quilt batting, and then under that I've got my back fabric, which is the same black grunge that I have for the border. And what you want to do is, obviously, and you can see it here, I've got my batting larger than my panel, and also the back fabric is larger. And so lay that out and just center your front panel over everything else. So once it gets all quilted, then you can cut it down to size and clean up all the excess. But at this point, so before I pin this all together, and that'll be the next step, is to pin this, I want to start putting my details in here so I know where I'm stitching, because I've got large areas like this that actually get details sewn onto it, and so I need to transfer from here to here, and so that's what I'm going to do. Initially here I'm going to just kind of work on the center spine and all the little ribs that come off. That'll be the first thing that I transfer. I'll freehand it. I can obviously still use my photo as a reference, and then my drawing also as a reference. And I will just lay out where I want things to go. And all these marks that I'm putting will be covered up because they're just going to be satin stitched over, so it'll all get buried. And I'll probably keep my drawing close at hand when I'm doing the actual satin stitching, just to make sure I'm on track to where I want everything to lay out. Okay, I think that's all of it. So the next part of the project before we go to the sewing machine is to pin this all together. And I will do that with, they make specific safety pins for quilts because they've got, they're curved like that. So that way it can go under the layers and then back up and attach itself. So I will do that. The best way to do that is kind of start in the middle, and I've always was told just kind of a distance about like that. So on a small quilt like this, it's not going to have many, but try and get something close to the center and then just work your way out. So it would be here in these areas, and then pin down your border as well. And so let me get that done, and then we'll get over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how I stitch all these veins of the leaf out. And I thought I'd show you just me pinning this a little bit. I just put a cutting mat underneath because trying to do it on my ironing board, I'd probably get stuck to it. So it's real simple. It's just, and you want to kind of stay out of your own way. Think about where you're going to be actually, where you'll be quilting. It just simple comes up like that. A lot of times I have to use a little tool to help kind of close it like that. And like I say, you just kind of come out here a little bit. Anyway, that's basically it. I won't make you watch the whole thing, but you know, just in case you haven't done it before and wanted to see how it's done. All right, so I'll see you at the sewing machine when I get this all pinned down. All right, all my fine dude and dudettes. So we're halfway through the project and you've stuck with it this long. I appreciate it. Yes, it's getting to be a little bit of a long video, so we are going to stop here, and yeah, obviously there'll be a part 2 of this video. All right, so we've got all the construction done so far, and so this gives you a chance to work on your quilt, and then next week we'll have part 2, and I'll show you how we finish this one up. Yeah, I really appreciate you sticking with this video so far. Hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, you know, you made it this far, you might as well subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And if you really like this content, you know, please share it around. That really helps me out. And if you like this video, give it a good thumbs up. I appreciate it. And if you really want to help my channel out, go to my Buy Me a Coffee page and buy me a coffee. That really helps me out as well. That helps me create more content like this. One other thing I'd like to tell y'all, we're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. I believe I'm at around 950 at the time of recording this video. And so when we hit 1,000, I am going to be doing a giveaway. It'll be a tie-dye wall tapestry or a tie-dye t-shirt or a bleach painted shirt. It'll be your choice. And so share my videos around so we can hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. All right. Hey, love y'all. Peace out, baby, and go bust out some art.